Good morning, everyone. Adam Jarchow is back again this week and is my very special guest today, Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020. I'm Ben Dryden. You're watching DrydenWire Live. Very excited to chat with Adam today. A lot of craziness going on this week, man. Reminder, tomorrow, Shellick City Administrator Annie Ike will be Diane Dryden's guest on Diane's Kitchen. I'll be back on Friday chatting with Wisconsin's 10th District Senator Patty Shockner. You can watch a recording of all of our chats on DrydenWire.com and on our YouTube channel. All right. Let's get today's guest. Let's see if we can bring him in here. Please help me welcome attorney, business owner, and former Wisconsin Representative Adam Jarchow. Joker, what's going on, man?
How you doing?
Good, I think. No, I'm sorry. Well, Superman does good.
You're a glutton for punishment 2 weeks in a row, huh, man?
I know. You know, and I had a lot of messages after when you were on last week. They said, one, you did great, and I really do think that as well. And also, a lot of them said, I'm really surprised, though. Like, surprised by what? And they said, well, you know, we follow him on Twitter, and he has strong opinions, etc., but he was kind of right down the middle. And I said, well, I think he was kind of giving his opinions on things, but also an analysis of things that were happening. And it was just so funny that I had so many saying, man, I was surprised.
Well, I'll try to be more partisan this week.
Yeah. Oh, that a boy. Yeah, there is a lot to get to with all the stuff that's happening down there. So yesterday, well, actually, what happened yesterday that obviously made the news everywhere?
Yeah, there was a couple of big things that have happened, right? So, of course, late last week, the governor extended the stay-at-home order to the end of May, or through close to the end of May. And that set off, I think, a firestorm. And what happens when there's a firestorm, like we talked about last week? At the end of the day, legislators are responsive to the public, right? Mm-hmm. That's how it works. So if a bunch of people are calling and saying to all their legislators, hey, we're really nervous about this, we have to stay at home, we support the governor, guess what the legislature is going to do? Nothing. They won't say anything. They won't do anything. Nothing. But when the new order came out and people realized that Memorial Day just vanished into thin air, the legislators started to hear a whole different message, which is, okay, we've done our part. The curve has flattened. It's time to start reopening our economy. I'm terrified about my job. I'm terrified about my business. And so yesterday, the Wisconsin legislature filed a lawsuit against, it actually wasn't against Governor Evers, technically, because the order wasn't from Governor Evers, technically. It was from the Secretary of the Department of Health. And the legislature filed a lawsuit against that stay-at-home order that she signed last week in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So we'll have a Supreme Court decision, I would guess, maybe end of next week. They've given the governor's staff a week to respond. They've given non-party folks who want to file an amicus brief about a week to respond.
What's an amicus brief?
Yeah, it's called a friend of the court brief. So if you're, let's say that you're impacted by this, say you're a restaurant that's closed or a bar that's closed, or you're a commercial fisherman, or you're a landscaper, or you're a radio host, or you're a Facebook Live host, and you feel like you've been negatively impacted by this order, you can have an attorney write a brief for you to the court and ask the court to consider your situation as they're considering the entire large part of the case. And so it's a very common tool that's used for other parties to kind of weigh in on big, important issues. And of course, this is a pretty big, important issue.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
And as we had talked last week, I think we said last week that the week before, it wasn't really a partisan thing. And then everything happened, and then the special session, and all that stuff happened, and now it quickly turned political. So in the last week now, what have you seen? Has this gotten more political?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly political whenever you have the Republican-controlled legislature suing the Democrat governor. But the lawsuit, I've never read, and I've been practicing law for 15 years, and I have never read a legal document like I read yesterday in that lawsuit. And here's why. So the legislature essentially in that lawsuit asked the court to do two things. Number one, hold that the order violates the statutory authority of the Department of Health secretary, but two, to put that holding on hold so that the legislature can have an opportunity to negotiate and work out a deal with the governor. And the crazy thing about that is we've got a week where we're going to sit and wait for that, right?
Yeah.
And what I've said yesterday on Twitter is, hey, Governor Evers, hey, how about this? Why don't you have Fitz and Robin come into your office this week and let's work out a deal? Because at the end of the day, the case that was filed is incredibly strong. I don't think it can be understated how weak of a position the governor's staff left themselves in by having an unelected bureaucrat essentially sign this order as opposed to the governor under the governor's emergency powers. I mean, effectively, they circumvented the rulemaking process, and there's no way, almost no way, that the Wisconsin Supreme Court is going to let this stand. So at the end of the day, whether it happens today, tomorrow, or a week from now after the court rules, the legislature and the governor are going to have to work together on this. And for goodness sakes, why wouldn't we start now?
Well, you said that last week too. That just, my goodness, just they need to sit down and talk. But you also had said that you think that relationship is broken and not sure if it's fixable. So what would change this week then? I mean, what you're saying is absolute. I get it. That's what they should do. But are they gonna?
Yeah, well, so necessity, right? So at the end of the day, the governor, I think, doesn't want this to be like a light switch where the court just says, hey, your order exceeded its authority. It's not enforceable. And so it's gone. It's out, right? That's the worst case scenario for the governor and the governor's staff, and probably for the state. That's probably not the right way to do this. But that is the only way at the end of the day that the court can probably act. So if you're the governor or the governor's lawyer and you're being honest with the governor and you say you're unlikely to prevail in this case, the necessity means you have to sit down with the legislative leaders and work out a deal. And guess what that means? The governor's not going to get everything he wants. Robin Vos won't get everything he wants, and Fitz won't get everything he wants. And so it will leave, more absolutist types like me, somewhat unhappy. More absolutist types on the other side, somewhat unhappy, but it would leave probably 80% of the population pretty darn happy if they worked together.
Yeah. I'd seen a lot of articles that were written that Evers, I didn't read through most of them, but I saw a lot of headlines this morning when I look at Wisconsin news across the interwebs. Thank you, Al Gore. Saying that that this was a power move or a power grab from the GOP, specifically Vos and Fitzgerald. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, so that it's really interesting that that's the language that the governor's staff used, right? Yeah. So for about 45 days, we've had a governor acting solely through executive order. And then when the elected members of the legislature, who are a co-equal branch and are the ones that are supposed to be making the laws and under our system of administrative rules and kind of controlling the delegated powers to agency secretaries, they're the ones that get a chance to weigh in. So they say, hey, you've not included us, you haven't followed the rules, you have to follow the rules, and all of a sudden that becomes a power grab. I think at the end of the day, we have these checks and balances in the system, and they're there for a reason. And we don't let the governor or agency bureaucrats run the show. We don't let the legislature run the show. They have to work together. That's how the system is designed. And if they don't work together, there's always a check, right? So there's the legislative check, or as we saw from the Polk County Sheriff yesterday, there's the sheriff check saying, I think this is unconstitutional. I'm not going to enforce this. We have all of these built-in checks and balances, and it's one of the beauties that we have in our country.
Do you think this is unconstitutional?
I think there are parts of it that are likely unconstitutional, but I don't think the court will reach that issue. Remember, courts try to decide things on the most narrow ground possible. And so here, I think what the court is going to look at is the administrative rulemaking process. And it's very esoteric and very technical, and it's not sexy at all, but it's very important that the process is followed. And the reason that's important is because the legislature has a say in that process. Whereas if you're just governing by executive order, that's different. Then the legislature doesn't have a say. So I think the court probably won't reach the constitutional issue. It will decide it on narrower statutory grounds, would be my guess.
Sorry, I said to Google esoteric. Stop using words I don't know. Like, I don't know what that word means. In case anyone else doesn't know, it's intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. Got it.
Yeah. I'll do better, Ben. I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't use anything over 3 syllables. Just don't even do it. Don't go there, dude.
You want to know a funny story?
Yeah, I do actually.
When my wife was pregnant, we were thinking of names for the kids, and we have twins. And so I told my wife the most important thing is that we have only a 1-syllable name for my son in case he's born like me and has trouble spelling. and so his name is Bo, B-O.
Nice. That's awesome. Oh. Well, I'm looking at the statement from Voss and Fitzgerald that we put on DrydenWire yesterday. I just want to kind of go over a couple things. So the first thing, and this was quoting their own press release, the public outcry over the safer at home order continues to increase as positive COVID cases decrease or remain flat. Do you think that the cases that a lot of areas where it's either decreasing or remaining flat, what would you say to people that would suggest that that is because of the safer at home order? So now wouldn't be the time to do this.
Right. So I think there's very little doubt that the stay-at-home order has had some impact, some positive impact. There's no doubt, right? You can even see that in other kind of illnesses that are transferred by close human contact, like the flu. The incidence of the flu have gone down. Mm-hmm. And so there's no doubt that this has been effective. But at some point you have to say, okay, at what cost? Everything that we do in society has to be balanced against the counter cost. And the counter costs have grown pretty steep. When you have 400,000 people in our state not working, that's a pretty steep cost. I am now, when we all started this, the predictions from people who kind of understood the economy were that small business owners had 30 days of reserves. Well, we're just getting to that 30-day period. And guess what I'm hearing now more and more and more from small business owners? Absolute desperation, right? They cannot make it. And so if you're a small business owner and you're faced with, well, either I open and I take my chances that they're going to give me a fine, or I don't open and I lose my business,
right? You're
going to make the decision to open. And that's just not a good place to be as a society. The right place to be is to find that sort of sweet spot where we're protecting people, we're doing a regional reopen plan. When we are reopened, we're limiting capacity to some extent. We're requiring gloves and masks to be worn at places like bars and restaurants. And so we can balance this. We can do this, and we can do it right, and we can protect the elderly and the most vulnerable. But we can't just keep the economy closed. I mean, did you see what happened in the oil markets earlier this week? Did you pay attention to that at all?
I do, actually. Well, I put that again. So in the mornings, I do our U.S. and world headlines. Like, here's the 5 things you should know in the country, and here's 5 things outside of our coverage area for DrydenWire, other things that are happening in Wisconsin. And I saw it was just. So
literally, what happened is, if you had a futures contract that came due in May, you didn't want to take that oil, and so you literally had to pay people. You had to pay people $37 to take your barrel of oil. Never in the history of our country
First time ever
has oil been at zero, let alone negative $37. The economic harm that we're inflicting now is incredible.
Well, you had talked about that you're getting a lot of calls, and that you've talked to a lot of businesses, and they're hitting this point, about 30 days in. And I had conversations a couple of weeks ago, or actually with multiple businesses over the last few weeks. How long can you go? Like, what's your cutoff? And most of them really did say, May 1st. So it would be a little over 30 days, but, about a month. After that, I mean, holy cow. We don't know what to do at that point.
Don't you think that's particularly true in northern Wisconsin, where a lot of our kind of hospitality type businesses have about 4 or 5 months to make their revenue for the full year? And that really starts right now, right? End of April, early May. And if you lose a month of that, it makes it almost unsustainable to run that business.
It does. And that's the sad part.
How's DrydenWire doing? Are you guys killing it?
Well, actually, we're doing pretty well. I mean, we're already doing, I think, fine. I think, so like our average week, if you just look at like our unique page views, I think we average around 105, 108, about 108,000 a week. And since the safer at home order, I think we're around 135,000. So that's 25% increase.
you're using words that are too big for me now. So what does page view mean? So
Oh boy, that's a whole other
108,000
thing. So
people.
there's users, page views, unique users, and sessions. And honestly, I could have an hour-long show just explaining what all these things mean. I think just in this reference, it's simply comparing previous to what we're at now. So if you look at our users, you look at everything, we're about 25% up in terms of our viewership. People are going onto our page. I'm talking DrydenWire.com, not even our Facebook page, because Facebook's whatever. But it's going really well.
Do you think that's because people view you as not fake news as opposed to the traditional media that people view as fake news?
I don't know.
Are you the anti-fake news of Northern Wisconsin?
Well, no, if you read some of the emails that I get, that wouldn't be accurate. What I've discovered that fake news is anytime we do something that you don't like, then you just say fake news. It's like, it's not fake news. You just don't like it. It's fine if you don't like it. Just don't say it's fake news. But no, I think it's one of those things that our business was kind of set up for a situation like this as well, without knowing this was going to happen, of course. But we're free, and it's online, and it's social media. I really feel bad for newspapers, because weekly newspapers, they were already struggling. But now, with everything changing on a daily basis, sometimes hourly, well, it's like 8-9 days old by the time you get the paper when you get that news.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for them, and I strongly encourage everyone. I mean, if you want to support a local business, these papers have been around for like 700 years or something. It's like less than a cup of coffee for a paper. Just get a subscription, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't have one. You should get one. But I don't have one for a different reason. I don't want to see what they do. I want to do what I do, and I don't care. But no kidding. I mean, if you can't for 50 cents a week help a local business, come on, man. That's stupid.
Well, and I think that's a great point, and it's not just the papers, right? It's all of these local businesses. So let's just say the local restaurant, pub goes out of business in downtown Balsam Lake. Mm-hmm. So that's bad for the business owner, of course, but people don't think about it, how bad it is for the community. First of all, they employ a fair number of people who make an okay wage there. They provide the community service. It's part of the attraction for lake people that there's various restaurants and bars that they can go eat at. Mm-hmm. They support your local school, your community clubs. Whenever you have a fundraiser, you go to the local business. That local business, when it's doing, when it's advertising or when it's, buying goods and services, often they're also local small businesses. So this has a cascading impact. And I think that's what really has started to get the attention of the public, which therefore has gotten the attention of the legislature, is that when you actually start seeing the businesses close, which we're starting to see now, and they're saying, I can't come back. I don't have the money to come back. Yeah. And you start thinking of the economic harm that's going to cause to Main Street communities across northwestern Wisconsin. I think that's where people start thinking, okay, we have to be reasonable. We cannot destroy our economy to fight the virus, because all of a sudden then the cure becomes worse than the cold. Yeah, and
you said earlier that it isn't just, let's open everything up tomorrow. There's a pragmatic way of doing this. So
if Adam was king, we'd open everything up tomorrow, right? But I'm not, and neither is Robin Boss, and neither is Tony Evers. So we have a system where they actually have to work together, and what that will mean is compromise.
All right. Well, Rob, your buddy Rob Staffschultz just commented and said, talk about the legal consequences to these businesses if they open outside of the safer at home order. I know we touched on that a little bit, but could you expand on that a little more?
Yeah, for sure. It's nice that Rob commented. He's one of our state representatives. And the ironic thing is Rob's running against Patty Schachner. Your guest on Friday.
Yeah, on Friday. I've never spoken with her before. Actually, after our chat here, we're going to do a quick Skype test just to make sure everything's working. But she sends things that we publish, either press releases or weekly guest columns. We post them. So I'm really looking forward to talking to her on.
When you see my friend Patty, people probably know, most people who are listening probably know, Patty waxed me in an election here a couple of years ago. When you see her, tell her that I said everything she says is fake news.
I'm writing that down right now.
I'm kidding.
Fake news. Yeah, I just assumed that she was going to be talking about how much did she beat you by, and because of that, you had to quit politics.
My feelings are still a little hurt, and now you open that wound.
Oh, I'm sorry. Too soon. I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah, so to get to Rob's question, I think it depends on where you are, what county you're in, right? So all of a sudden, Racine and Polk County have sheriffs that have said, I think that I have other things that are a priority in my enforcement regime than going to small businesses to see if people are eating a hamburger. Instead, what Sheriff Walk and the sheriff in Racine County and others around the state have said is, I think that this borders on the order borders as unconstitutional. I think that the secretary that signed it maybe doesn't have the authority to sign it. I'm an independently elected constitutional officer. I take an oath to uphold the Constitution, and therefore I'm going to do something a little bit different here. And so if you're in Polk County and you decide that you can safely open your business, I think there's a reasonable chance that the sheriff's department is not going to get involved. Same thing in Racine County. Now, if you're in a different county, say you're in St. Croix County, Sheriff Knutson has not, to my knowledge, put out a statement like Sheriff Walk has. And so I think you're taking a little bit more risk there. And let's just say now you're in Polk County, but you happen to be in the city of Amory. Well, guess what? The city of Amory is not under the jurisdiction of the sheriff's department, right? They have their own local police department. So what is the local law enforcement folks going to do in Amory? I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, that gets back to, we have all this uncertainty, all this angst, all this fear, and in my opinion, and I keep beating this horse, that they need to sit down and work together. That means the legislature has to work with Governor Evers, and Governor Evers has to work with the legislature, and they can do it. Just last week, they passed unanimously a bipartisan COVID bill, and the governor signed it within like 5 minutes of it being passed. They can do this if they want to do this, but unfortunately, what I saw last night out of the governor's office was a long tweet essentially saying that the Republicans were more interested in killing people. And it's like, come on, man, really? You might not agree with Republicans, but I don't know a lot that want people to die.
And on the same token, or on the same side of the coin, or the opposite side of the coin, however that phrase goes, for the people who question what Evers did in the Safer at Home, I don't believe that he wanted to kill businesses. I think you have to look at it kind of both sides. It's just my opinion. I don't know, because I think he did what he thought was in the best interest. But yeah, we need to get something fixed here. I want to go back to what you said about Sheriff Walk in that order. From an attorney standpoint, is there any legal ramifications for doing this? So Sheriff Walk put that out, and people can go to his Facebook page, or the Polk County Sheriff's Department's Facebook page, and you'll see his statement there. But is there a situation where if you had said, well, maybe he doesn't, and you weren't speaking for him, I know, but business opens up and maybe we're not going to look into that. Are there any liabilities there for the sheriff issuing that?
For the sheriff?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I mean, the interesting thing about our constitutional system in Wisconsin is the sheriff is an independently elected constitutional officer. There are very few of those in the state, in fact, and the sheriff is one of them. And so the sheriff has, within his or her sound discretion, the ability to decide, how and which laws to sort of prioritize. And they do this every single day. This is not new. When you're driving 59 down the road and it's a 55 and they don't pull you over, well, they decided not to enforce the law, right? Yeah. They decided that they're not going to give you a ticket. And that happens all the time in law enforcement. And so each sheriff sort of, and one of the beauties of the system is the local sheriff is responsive to the people that the local sheriff sort of represents, right? So in Polk County, there's 45,000 people that Sheriff Walk is responsible to. And it's pretty clear that Sheriff Walk believes that the people of Polk County think that this order probably goes a little bit too far, maybe is unconstitutional, and that Sheriff Walk should prioritize things like, catching meth dealers over, small business owners who are just trying to survive.
Not pot people, though. Because the people freak out.
I think Sheriff Walk catches the pot people.
Yeah, he does.
There are other sheriffs who have decided not to do that, which is, I
don't care. So you had given grades last week. I had to go back and I watched your show last night.
What did I give you? Did I give you F?
Well, I suppose I fall under people, and you gave people like an F-, so I guess I'd be F-. I should have asked, dang it. All right, I'm putting myself on this list now. All right. So last week, you had given Evers a D+ for an overall grade up until that point. Has that changed in this last week?
I'm going to stick in the D's with Tony Evers. I really think it was an unforced error by his administration to extend the order. I think had he come out and said on May 20, like a lot of governors in our area, right? If you look at Minnesota, Illinois, other states in our area, they've all said, we're going to start opening. Even Governor Cuomo in New York has said they're going to start opening on a regional basis. If he would have done something like that last week and gotten some legislative buy-in, I think he could have risen to a B or even an A. Mm-hmm. But instead, he went just the opposite direction. And not only that, it's so silly that he changed the nature of the order from being under his executive emergency powers to trying to sort of skirt the rule that he only has 60 days by putting it under the DHS powers. It's so silly that he had this 60-day window to work with the legislature and he didn't. So that's a long way of saying I don't change his grade. It's still a D.
Well, you gave him a D plus last time. Are you staying a D plus?
I'll give him a D now. I think this was worse.
All right. Down a D. Last week, Wisconsin Republicans, Fitzgerald, Voss, or just, I guess, all Wisconsin Republicans there. I think you gave them a C. What would you give them now?
I'm going to bump that up. I'm really proud of these guys. So one of the things that I pushed when I was in the legislature, even though we had a Republican governor at the time, is that the legislature has ceded far too much authority to the executive branch. And the nature of this lawsuit that they have filed is essentially to protect the prerogative of the co-equal branch, the legislature, and to be involved in that process. So I'm really proud that they've done that. And I'll tell you, it's in a lot of places, this is still at best a 50-50 issue for them. So they're feeling a little bit of political pressure. They are leading, and that's what's needed in this situation. So I'm not going to give them an A because I haven't yet seen the plan where they've worked together with the governor, but I'm going to move the legislative Republicans up to a B.
A B, okay. Of course, next week this could all change again.
Exactly.
I really haven't been following a whole lot of President Trump just because we have so much going on in Wisconsin. Have you been following any of that? Last week you gave him a C, but I really haven't been following a whole lot from him this last week.
You know, it's terrible to say, but I haven't because I think in this instance, really the states are leading, so I haven't, and I can't tell you one way or the other much of what he's done in the last week.
We'll keep it at a C, I guess, then.
Fair enough.
And people you had at an F minus.
I feel so much better about where the people are now. Oh. The people have started to talk. They've started to speak up. We've seen even healthcare workers. There was a great letter from a doctor in our area, actually a couple of doctors in our area this week. We're starting to see more and more people understand, I think, that this is an important balance that we need to strike, that we can't possibly just shut down the economy for this long. And people have begun to contact their legislators, and that's why they're moving. One of my friends in the legislature shared with me their sort of call log on pro and con, and it has moved dramatically for some of these people into the we need to reopen the economy. And so that means that people are active, people are taking a stand, people are talking to their legislators, and they're doing what is necessary to move the legislature, and that's great.
Well, I don't know why anyone's in politics. I don't know why you were, and why go into that job. There's no job security, and then if you do get the job for a while, then you're labeled a career politician. I think, and I'm sure this isn't a very popular opinion, but I think they're really underpaid for what they do. A third of the people love you, a third of the people hate you, and a third of the people just don't care. You're not a human, right? You're a politician, so we can just say whatever we want about you anytime that we want. It's a tough gig, man. It just is. I don't know why people do it, and I'm so grateful that there are people out there that are actually doing it.
Yeah, I think for some people they do it because they like the power, right? They got beat up, they were bullied in high school, and now they get to be that guy.
Yeah.
And you can tell who those people are, by the way, in the legislature. You're just like, oh, you were that guy that was bullied, right? But there's also a group of people on both sides of the aisle who, even if we have different ideas from them, who genuinely care and genuinely want to serve. And a lot of those people didn't start out running for state assembly or state senate. They served as a time on their town planning commission or their city council or their county board. And those people, have a sort of a servant's heart. And that's what they are there to serve. And yeah, you're going to disagree with them. I mean, you had a comment from Rob Staffsholt. He's one of my best friends, and I disagree with him. And I try not to make it public when I disagree with them. But we have yelling matches, and that just is what it is in politics. You're gonna disagree sometimes.
Yeah, I like disagreeing with Rob every time I talk to him. I'm just testing him, getting him ready for his campaign. So I don't care if he tells me exactly why the sky's blue. I'll say no, it's because of the oceans. right? Just
right. That's what you should do. A buddy of mine was just sworn in last night, actually, as the new county board chair, and I couldn't in Polk County, and I couldn't be more proud of him. But I told him yesterday that I couldn't wait to harass him and tell him what an awful job he was doing. Because at the end of the day, we have to tell them what a good job they're doing when they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
But even if they're your friends, you have to hold them accountable.
oh my goodness, you do. Yeah, and if nothing else, you get some good ribs in there, and I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. It's good for you. So I want to update my list here. People were F- last week. You were giving them some more props now. What would you give? What grade would you give them now?
I'm going to put them at C plus B minus. I like where the people are at.
Well, which one? C plus or B minus?
I don't know. Where do you want to go? B minus.
Wow, that's a huge jump.
And here's why I'm going to jump that high. It's not just because people have come around to saying, oh, we should open up. It's because people who are even genuinely apprehensive about this and genuinely feel like, this might be moving too fast are having reasonable conversations, much more reasonable than a week or two ago, about, there does have to be a balance. And so long as we're doing it the right way. And I feel really good about kind of where people have begun to get to, and hopefully that will continue.
Right, because everyone wants us to be safe, and everyone wants our businesses to succeed. It's just, how do we find that balance to get both?
Right.
Ballots. I was talking to a person running for an office, I think it was in Washington, somewhere in our area, and the concern was about getting signatures. You ran, you were in the legislature, and you ran, what was that, is that the 28th district? Is that what you were in?
Yeah.
Yep. So obviously you go out, door knocking, signatures. What advice would you give politicians right now, or people that are running for office that can't go out and get signatures? What advice would you give them? How should they do that?
Yeah, I don't think it's all that hard. So if you're running for assembly seat, you need between 200 and 400. So if you don't have, 10, 20 friends that you could send that around to that can fill up a sheet and get you, 10 signatures, you're probably not the right guy to be running for the job. So, politicians are kind of whiners. Oh, I can't go get my signatures. If you can't get signatures, I don't really want you representing. It means you're not willing to put in some creative work. It's not that hard.
That's awesome. It's not that tough. Maybe you shouldn't be running. Oh, hold on. I got to see what Rob just said. One of my favorite arguments of my career was with Adam on the way to Madison that started in Menominee and ended at the parking lot in the garage in Madison. And yes, he is still wrong on that one yet today. Can you tell us what that was about?
You need to stop reading anything that Rob wrote.
No, now I want to read everything. Rob, keep commenting. Can you tell us what that argument was about?
I'm not going to tell you because it probably involved, something that was not non-good for the public consumption.
Okay, I get it. Is the May 12th election going to happen? Special election?
I think it is. I think that Governor Evers, when he did the stay-at-home, the extension of the stay-at-home, the media in Madison asked him what he thought, and he kind of indicated, or his staff indicated, that he understood that there was a difference between northern Wisconsin and other more populated parts of the state, and that there are going to be fewer people at the polling places, and it would be fine. And by the way, so the incubation period for this is like 2 weeks, right, at the max. 5 to 10 days normal, 2 weeks max. So yesterday was the 14th day since the election in April. And what we've seen is a decrease in hospitalizations. The day before the election, the April 7th election, so on April 6th, there were like 173 new cases. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, there were 127 new cases. So, the dire warnings that we're killing everybody by sending them out to vote just absolutely did not come true. So if the governor does move the May 12th election, I think it will be pretty clear that he's doing it without any evidence of risk.
Well, and if you are interested in voting in that election, just get your absentee ballot now. I mean, why wait for a decision? Just freaking do it. It's not that tough. And if you don't know how to do it, you go
call your town clerk. Call your town clerk. Most of us in northern Wisconsin live in small towns. We know our town clerk.
We all know our town clerks.
Call the town clerk and say, hey, I need to come get an absentee ballot, or can you send me an absentee ballot? Talk about servants. There is no greater servant in our area than our town clerks. They are unbelievable.
I 100% agree, but I don't want to see people, which it's going to happen, they're just waiting for a decision to be made, and then they're going to be upset. And just do it now. I don't get it.
Yeah, for sure.
Common sense, man.
For sure.
What is wrong with people? Hey, so, oh, shoot. I'm sorry. One more question here. Hey, Alan wants to know, can we get Jarchow's opinion on him running for governor?
don't know which Alan that is, but it must be
Oh,
somebody that I
Gabi.
know.
He's what? Al Gabi. That's police chief, right? I think Turtle Lake. Is that right?
My strong suspicion is it's the son of the police chief who shares the same name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, Jarchow's opinion is never, ever will he run for anything again. That was fun, and it's over because Patty waxed me, and my feelings are still hurt.
I love it. All right, what are you doing this weekend?
I don't know.
Oh, are you watching the NFL draft tomorrow? Are you into sports at all?
I am. Yeah, I'm a big baseball guy and a big college football guy. So the best part about the state's reopening is, so I went to college in the South, and so I'm a Florida Gators fan. And the SEC, all the states down there are beginning to reopen, so we might actually get to have an SEC season.
That'd be nice.
And I'm excited about that.
I know.
I don't know what will happen. Can you imagine not having a Big Ten football season? It's going to be brutal.
I know WIAA had canceled all their tournaments. It's just, yeah, I think NFL, if they open, what's that look like? Is the NBA going to come back? What's baseball doing? I mean, all should be playing right now. Not all of them, but a couple of them. And I don't even know what hockey's doing. I don't follow hockey. Mike Schaefer follows hockey, so that's it. He's the only person I know on the planet that follows hockey is Mike Schaefer.
One of the reasons that I'm also giving the public a better grade is because I have felt this community support. My wife owns a small business that's been impacted by this, a restaurant and event center. Mm-hmm. And so over the last month, we've kind of tried to be open on Fridays and Saturdays to go. And last week, we were able to bring the staff back and be open every day for to go and delivery.
Oh, nice.
And so when you ask what I'm doing on the weekend, I've been actually helping out down there.
Attaboy.
Running deliveries, and I'll probably do that a little bit this weekend because the people around here have been so overwhelmingly supportive, not just of our small business, but I hear it from a lot of the bar and restaurant owners. And yeah, they're not making money, and yeah, some of them are losing money, but at least they're not getting absolutely decimated.
Exactly.
And
just hold on a little bit longer, right? If this just helps that.
So for those people that can do takeout, it's been kind of okay-ish. Now there's a lot that can't, right? If you're a bar owner, there's nothing you can do. You're just closed, and it's just absolutely brutal for those guys. But the communities around here have really tried to support the people that they can support.
I agree. Hey, we should do this again next week. Well, we'll see.
I don't know. You'll have to look. Maybe your page. What do you call it? Page views. Page views. Maybe they went way down when I'm on.
Oh, like our view. Oh, I don't even know. Right now, there's 107 people watching right now. But it doesn't matter. 95% of people who watch live things actually watch it after it's live. So, I'm pretty sure we'll have something to talk about next Wednesday. That'd just be my guess.
Interesting. The governor has a week to respond to this court order, and I think next week's going to be an interesting week in Wisconsin.
I should see if we can get Senator Fitzgerald on.
There you go.
That would be nice, actually.
You should. Yeah.
I don't know if he will, but we'll find out. All right, cool. We'll chat with you next week. Thank you very much to my guest today, attorney, business owner, and former Wisconsin Representative Adam Jarchow, and thank all of you for watching. We'll see you right back here tomorrow morning at 8:30 when Shellick City Administrator Andy Eike will chat with Diane Dryden on this week's Diane's Kitchen. So until then, stay safe, keep your social distance, and have a blessed day.